Hello again. Welcome to Pre-Algebra. We are working on lesson 79 here, which is on implied ratios. So we've worked a little bit with ratios before. This is going a little bit more in depth. We've already learned when we compare one ratio to another, that's called a proportion. A ratio itself is a comparison of two numbers. We usually write it as a fraction. And when we write proportions, we have two ratios that really are both comparing the same things. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm actually going to look at example 79.2 for ours today. And it's a word problem. I'm going to read it out. And then from this, it's going to imply a ratio for us. The example says it takes 3 tons of fertilizer to fertilize 170 acres. Farmer Brown wants to fertilize 1,870 acres. So how many tons of fertilizer does he need? Now, the implied ratio that it gives here is basically the tons of fertilizer compared to acres. So the thing to keep in mind is whenever we write a ratio for this problem, that's what we're comparing. We're comparing how many tons of fertilizer to how many acres. So every time we write a ratio for this one, we'll have tons of fertilizer on top, acreage on the bottom. And remember, your first ratio in the problem are the simplified numbers, okay? Kind of like if I tell you there's 3 boys for every 4 girls at school. That's a simplified ratio. There's actually more than 3 boys and 4 girls. There might actually be 300 boys and 400 girls. That's the real numbers. So usually in these problems, our first ratio is the simplified ratio. The second one is the real numbers. So in this case, the simplified ratio is how much it takes to fertilize 170 acres. It tells us it takes 3 tons of fertilizer to fertilize 170 acres. That's our simplified number. The other ratio is going to be the same comparison, tons of fertilizer to acres, but it's going to be the real numbers. And in example 2, it doesn't tell us how many tons of fertilizer. It actually asks us how many. So instead of writing a number, for right now, we're just going to write T because we don't know what that number is yet. So this is going to be tons of fertilizer. They do tell us how many acres he's wanting to fertilize. It's 1,870. So on both of these ratios, we're comparing tons of fertilizer to acres. Tons of fertilizer, 2 acres. And we now have a proportion set up. And once we have a proportion set up, it's an easy problem to answer because we cross multiply. We'll still have an equal sign in the middle. We'll do 170 times t, which is 170t. We'll also do 3 times 1,870, and we will get 5,610. So we get 170t equals 5,610. We divide 5,610 by that 170, and that'll tell us how many tons of fertilizer we need. Our answer is 33 tons of fertilizer. So that tells us exactly how much we need. So look at that. Farmers need half too. It's important for all of us. I hope that helps you. You'll be working on problem set 79 today, 30 problems as usual. I'll see y'all tomorrow.